Hey everyone, today we are going to be ranking every survivor perk in the game. This is going to be a pretty heavily subjective but also incredibly difficult video to make, as there's such a wide range of perks with a wide range of applications. This is just my personal ranking order, but I'm going to do my best to not be biased towards any perks I might like, and try to give a pretty good overview of how each perk in the game would rank. Let's get into it. So, coming in our number 86 spot. Soul Survivor. Soul Survivor reduces the aura reading ranges of the killer, however it only does this for every teammate who dies. This perk is built to synergize with Laurie's other perk, Object of Obsession, but it just doesn't work all too well without it. Add that it relies on the deaths of your teammates, which quite frankly is counterproductive. Ideally you want a perk that helps them stay alive and doesn't incentivize them dying. This is a really strange perk to me, and honestly I think the worst in the game. Barely any application for this, and honestly it just seems incredibly pointless with its weak ability. Coming in at number 85 we have Buckle Up. Buckle Up lets you see the progress of survivor recovery on the ground through auras. It's kind of cool how the aura almost has like a heat bar. This perk also has a small benefit in that it reveals the killer's aura briefly when you pick someone up off the ground. At the same time, this perk is just not needed. It doesn't even really synergize with anything. And at the same time, it's just quite simply not good. You can already see down teammates' auras. This literally just lets you see the progress of their recovery and briefly see the killer. The application from reviving from the dying state is mostly narrow. This just doesn't happen too often, so you'll basically never get to use this perk, and the effect is just so weak. In our number 84 spot, we have No Mither. No Mither is often considered to be the worst perk, and is memed on thoroughly. The reason why No Mither is higher than these other perks though is that I feel like No Mither at least tries to do something useful. It's just a shame it has to have such giant drawbacks. No Mither is a perk that makes you permanently broken for the entire trial, and makes it so you can't heal. The trade-off for this is that you don't drop any blood, and you can fully recover as many times as you like, but this just isn't really a good trade-off for a full game of being broken. It's more of a challenge perk than anything else, in my opinion. This is a simple situation of a perk potentially damaging you more than it helps you. In number 83 we have Mettle of Man. Mettle of Man is a perk that requires 3 protection hits, so that's like getting hit while someone is being carried or running in front of someone just before they're hit. Once you have taken 3 hits, this perk allows you to take 1 hit without any consequence. You shrug it off basically. There's also a last strange stipulation in that once this perk has been used, your aura is revealed to the killer. Basically this perk asks you to waste your time, force yourself to body block, because let's face it, 3 protection hits generally doesn't happen naturally in a regular game. And finally it has negative effects that are applied as a result of the perk working. Very strange and honestly just not worth it. In our number 82 spot we have Déjà Vu. Déjà Vu is a perk that reveals the auras of 3 nearby generators at the beginning of the trial briefly, and that's it. This perk is just kind of silly to be honest. Sure, it can help you find generators straight away, but 9 times out of 10 you typically spawn next to a generator anyway. It just seems like an odd perk. The only application I can see is maybe indoor maps, or if you're incredibly new to the game. In number 81 we have Up the Ante. Up the Ante is a perk that gives you 3% luck for every one of your fellow teammates that are alive, meaning as long as 3 people are up, you get an extra 9% luck, which hey, that's pretty nice. Unfortunately, luck just simply doesn't do much. It's a very arbitrary buff that feels like it broadly doesn't affect the game, so this perk for an extra 9% is not worth it unfortunately. It requires synergy to make it even usable, I feel. Luck affects events such as self-unhooking and getting out of bear traps, both of which have narrow application again, and even in those situations, for example self-unhooks, they're just generally not a good idea. In our number 80 spot we have No One Left Behind. This perk lets you perform altruistic actions like healing or unhooking quicker, and also reveals all survivor auras once at least one exit gate has been powered. This is actually quite a nice little endgame buff that can be super helpful for managing the killer in quite high intensity moments of the match. Issue is it activates incredibly late game, so you're playing with 3 perks up till a gate being opened, and even then you might not get the chance to use it. So it's again mainly just an issue of lack of application. It's just too narrow, but the perks it gives are actually quite nice. Coming in at 79 we have Left Behind. Left Behind reveals the hatch's aura once the hatch has spawned in and you were the last one left. Yeah, that's it, not too much. It's very restrictive to the endgame, and even in its best situation it's no more than average. Not a great perk in my opinion. If it would allow you to see the hatch whilst everyone was alive, it would be more viable, but again, it's mainly these perks with highly restrictive applications that are low down, as they'll often just never get a chance to be used. In number 78 we have Red Herring. Red Herring is a deception perk that allows you to work on a generator briefly and then enter a locker to create a fake noise notification on the generator you had been working on. This perk is super weird and requires far too much preparation for something that barely ever works or helps. I do enjoy using it, but it's just a perk that has a heavily time-consuming setup for what can often be dysfunctional or worthless as a time equivalent payoff. In 77 we have Ace in the Hole. Ace in the Hole lets you get an add-on or two for every item you get out of a chest. It's just not really that great. It doesn't do enough, but it's pretty cool. The main thing about this perk is just how unnecessary it is. It can feel almost like a half-made perk, like there is something else it should be doing that's missing. Chests aren't really necessary in the first place, and could be realistically argued to be a waste of time unless under a certain set of criteria. This perk simply doesn't help aside the 1 in every 20 times it'll apply something useful, or you force it to be good with synergies. In 76 we have Wake Up. Wake Up is a perk that will let you see the exit gates as auras from a long range, and also let you open them slightly quicker. Far too narrow application. This makes it a pretty bad perk. However, the extra speed can for sure come in clutch on occasion, which is why I don't want to completely slander this perk. If you pair this up with something like Resilience or Spine Chill during the endgame, then you can actually get the gate going pretty quickly, which can genuinely come in clutch sometimes. So this has a little more application than a lot of the others down here. In number 75 we have Breakout. Breakout is a perk that lets you assist your teammates by making their wiggle times quicker when they're being carried and when you are in their proximity. You also get the haste buff. This perk just doesn't do enough in my opinion, and requires more stacking for it to be effective, so it's pretty bad in my eyes. Body blocking to stop hooking is already a questionable strategy for most average teams, and can lead to indirect snowballs for the killer, and can often not even be too beneficial for the team even if they do manage to wiggle out. So a perk that helps this, and helps it in a very small way, just doesn't seem good in many regards. Number 74. This is not happening. This perk will make all your great skill check zones larger when injured. It's a small buff for sure, but at least it's consistent. It doesn't do much, but what it does do, it does often enough to be at least vaguely viable. For people who are comfortable playing injured, this is also viability for people to get good use out of this perk, while saving time for the team as a whole. It has a layer of benefit in that hitting great skill checks do bump healing and generator progress up quicker, so again, not amazing but not overly useless either. Blood Pact is in 73. Blood Pact is a perk that creates a bond between yourself and the obsession. When you fully heal the obsession, you'll gain the haste status effect when you're in a range of them forever, only broken when you leave a 16-meter range. This perk is super interesting, but it simply isn't effective nor viable. You'll find a lot of the more interesting and fun perks are often some of the worst ones too. The main issues of this perk is that it just takes so long to activate, and when you get it, it just doesn't last long enough for it to even be close to worthwhile. In 72 we have Slippery Meat. This perk doubles the amount of attempts you get to escape the hook from 3 to 6, and it also doubles the chances of unhooking yourself from 4% to 8%. This feasibly should be lower for the sole reason that it only applies to self-unhooking, and unlike a perk like Deliverance, it gives no guarantee of success. The only reason why this is so high is due to the potential it has if you do unhook yourself. Self-unhooking applies a ton of pressure on the killer, and it also saves a bunch of time. Also, I suppose there's no prerequisite like Deliverance has. In number 71 we have Flip-Flop. Flip-Flop converts recovery progress into wiggle progress at a 50% conversion rate and up to a maximum of 50%. This perk needs others to do well or to even be average. There's very few synergies this perk has, but the few it does make it vaguely viable. Power struggle paired with this, for example. Plus alone, this perk still makes for a low tier but still an anti-slug perk nonetheless, which makes it at least somewhat valuable as a counter to a popular strategy. In number 70 we have Better Together. Better Together is a perk that reveals your aura to other teammates when you're working on a generator. Again, kinda specific, and there's better alternatives quite frankly. You're better off just running Bond. You also get the small benefit of seeing other survivors briefly if you're on a gen and someone goes down. This is honestly the more helpful part, as it provides you with information such as who is closest to the hook to go over and get the save. It lets you weigh up leaving the gen or not. Diversion is in our number 69 spot. Diversion is a deception perk that allows you to throw a pebble on a 60-second cooldown timer. This pebble creates a noise notification and scratch marks for the killer. Diversion often doesn't manage to distract the killer, and even if it does, the killer will likely check the area, not see you, and then leave immediately, so it can often feel ineffective. The long cooldown can be quite punishing for this too. It doesn't supply much usage overall, but it does provide for some interesting play, and if you're playing fairly average games, this will definitely work at least a few times. For 68 we have Boil Over. Boil Over just makes your wiggling slightly stronger, but this really isn't going to affect a killer aura enough to stop them from getting you to a hook. Maybe with a combination of perks, but this alone is not going to cut it. It also blocks Hook's auras when you're picked up. This can help a little. The reason why this is high is that although this perk isn't amazing, if you have either an altruistic team or some perks to help it out, it's actually a surprisingly decent perk. In number 67 we have Pharmacy. The perk Pharmacy lets you open chests quicker, and it also guarantees a green medkit on your first chest open, which is okay, but that's all it is. Plunderers is a free and better alternative really. This perk isn't bad, the issue is that it just isn't even close to being good either. The green medkit is nice, it's one of the fast ones, but after that it's generally a waste of time to be searching chests unless you need a key or something. With this perk you also get the small buff of chests being a little quieter, which is nice I suppose. In number 66 we have Calm Spirit. Calm Spirit will stop you from screaming. This is a much less useful ability than it seems, however it has its applications, such as being a fairly hard counter to the Doctor, as well as Clown, and also Infectious Fright users. This really doesn't redeem it though. Oh yeah, and also you don't disturb crows, so yeah, there's that. The redeeming quality to Calm Spirit is that when it comes into play, it can be truly game-changing. I think simply because it can counter a relatively large aspect of information, it means it's at least fairly viable, and so shouldn't be disregarded. In number 65 we have Solidarity. Solidarity is a perk that converts 50% of the heals you do onto yourself also, so heal a teammate fully and you'll heal yourself 50% too. It sounds better than it is, and honestly you won't get much use out of it. It is up here still though, as healing is one of the largest downtimes taken within a match, so if there's a chance to cut that down, then it's worth it. Plus this acts as a pretty strong counter to perks like Sloppy Butcher, which is also quite common. So again, if your team gets injured a lot, then this perk is actually pretty solid at the end of the day. Group up, Solidarity heal to save time. In number 64 we have Lightweight. Lightweight is a very simple perk that makes your scratch marks disappear quicker. A huge benefit in Lightweight's favor is that it's passive and it's simple. You get what it says on the tin. This may seem like it's being placed too highly, but in all honesty this perk can be very good, especially for newer players or learning players, as it makes scratch marks more manageable and escaping chases easier and more bearable. A generally nice passive buff. For 63 we have Lucky Break. Lucky Break is a perk that I actually like a lot. I don't think it's good though. All this perk does is allow you to not drop blood for 180 seconds once you're injured, so it's like a worse and more restrictive Iron Will. It can be interesting to use though when paired with other things, namely Iron Will, in which case the two of them together can make you near untrackable. There's definitely solid application for this perk, as the removal of blood trails is a removal of another tool of tracking information, making this perk genuinely okay. It's just a shame that it has a timer and requires some synergies. In number 62 we have Technician. Technician is not great, but can be nice for new players. It makes it so generators can't explode, and also they're slightly quieter. They will also have more punishing regressions though if you do miss a skill check. This is up here honestly because there basically isn't a drawback to running this, and the reduced gen noise can be kinda helpful. A lot of killers will use sound to tell if you're on a generator, so the extra muffle range can do quite a bit. And the fact that you 100% don't have to worry about skill checks is pretty nice too. In number 61 we have Breakdown. Breakdown is one of those perks that leaves you expecting more. All it does is break the hook you're unhooked from, and you get to briefly see the killer's aura. That's all. It's just not really that great. It may buy you some time, but broadly this just isn't a good perk. With that said, it does break the hook for 3 times as long as usual, which is actually pretty nice for stopping camping and such, and the fact you see the killer's aura is a nice additional benefit to anti-camping. So at first glance this perk is average, but it can serve as a relatively good tool to counter tunneling as well as camping. Better when synergized though. In number 60 we have Camaraderie. Camaraderie effectively just pauses the second stage of a hook timer when a teammate is in range of you on the hook. A bit like Breakdown, it's also great for stopping camping, or not really stopping, but instead for punishing it. This pausing of the hook timer means you can get more gens done and also buy more time for a later save or to attempt to save as a group. So in all honesty it does function pretty well and fills a role that no other perk really does. In number 59 we have Fixated. Fixated I consider to be pretty bad. It lets you see your scratch marks and also walk 20% faster. I just really don't think this is that great. It's helpful as a new player, but I just really don't think it's that worthwhile. I personally feel like Urban Evasion is a better alternative to this. However, it's this high up because at least what it does functions properly and provides relatively useful information and a nice small passive buff to walk speeds. I know a lot of people really love this perk too. In 58 we have Saboteur. Saboteur will allow you to sabotage hooks without needing a toolbox, and it will also reveal auras of hooks when a teammate is picked up. This perk just isn't worthwhile generally, because often saboing hooks isn't worthwhile at all. Also it's better to just bring a toolbox and have a different perk. It has its uses though, of course, and the fact that it's the only perk that allows this ability is pretty nice, and the speed it lets you sabotage at is also pretty great. So again, in the way that it achieves what it does, it's not completely useless, and it can provide for some clutch plays and decent information. In 57 we have Babysitter. Babysitter in my mind is like a worse and more complicated borrowed time that potentially is only beneficial or better than BT if there happens to be a killer who's in stealth. This perk blocks scratch marks for anyone you save from a hook, and also reveals your aura to let the person you unhook escape. It's also kind of a more detrimental borrowed time, I suppose. However, it's a relatively effective anti-tunnel perk that encourages the killer to go for another target. And as a survivor group, this is ideal, quite frankly. If you can get the killer to hook you one by one, that's much better than having one guy get death hooked. So for the reason of it encouraging positive play, it's not bad. Poised is here in 56. Poised covers scratch marks for 10 seconds when a gen pops. This not only isn't enough time to be worth it, but additionally a lot of the time a killer won't even be near when you pop a gen, so the stealth provided by the scratch marks isn't worthwhile. With that said, the perk is still a good passive option that does have synergy and can provide for some very nice stealth plays if you just make sure to keep an eye on when it activates and whatnot. 10 seconds is just enough to make some ground as long as you break line of sight. Also, it's nice after popping a gen to know you probably won't be followed. Coming in at 55 we have Autodidact. Autodidact is a healing perk that begins by regressing your heals when hitting special skill checks. Once 2 stacks or 2 hits have been achieved, you will then gain a bonus to skill check hits when healing. So it's kinda like hindering yourself to begin to then boost yourself later on. Most of the time it doesn't pay off, mainly because of infrequency of skill checks or poor RNG. However, if you just do your best to get around to each injured person throughout a match, it can actually be an incredible healing perk, especially at 5 stacks. When you hit a skill check at 5 stacks, you'll insta-heal 50% of a health bar. That's really good and allows you to apply a ton of pressure. In number 54 we have Hope. Hope is a perk that will make you run 7% faster when all generators are completed for 120 seconds. That extra speed can help you counter the speed of Noed and also just provide more options when going for saves, doing spins and running loops. And this extra speed, especially against slower killers, can do a lot for you. It's better when synergized, sure, but alone it's still really great. The only letdown is that it has a timer. Speed is never something to look down upon though. Streetwise is in our number 53 spot. Streetwise is a perk that will make items use their durability 25% slower than the usual use speed. This just isn't great, I don't think. There's better options, and the buff itself can't be applied to teammates all too well, as you have to be close to them, within a range of 8 meters, which persists for 15 seconds upon leaving this range. So yeah, basically it's just too small in percentage and range. However, the fact that it can extend item usage is pretty good. If your whole team's on a gen, it's going to make toolboxes shred it. If you're healing with a medkit, it helps extend and reserve it, which is pretty invaluable sometimes. And hey, you might get some use here and there with flashlights and such. In number 52 we have Second Wind. Second Wind is only redeemed because of its ability to instantly heal you. Basically, you have to fully heal a teammate first, get unhooked, and then wait 30 seconds in order to get this insta-heal, which prior to you'll be broken for, but the fact that it does do this insta-heal makes it okay. You're better off running inner strength, self-care even maybe. However, the fact that you can passively heal is pretty amazing, to be honest, and as long as you don't get tunneled, it's actually pretty worthwhile, especially with a decent team. Again, any perk that can save time like this one has the potential to, and instantly heal you, is surprisingly decent. It also encourages you to heal teammates, which is always a positive too. In number 51 we have Visionary. Visionary reveals generator auras when close by, in a range of 32 meters. It's like a bond for generators. It's super okay and is pretty helpful, a lot like Bond. It's a reliable perk that will locate you generators, probably the most effective out of all the gen locating perks, so this makes it good because at the end of the day, generators are your primary objective as a survivor. Ideally, you're not spending too much time confused and running around looking for a gen. This just hones you down. It'll help new players a ton and honestly act as a nice passive benefit to even more experienced ones. In number 50 we have Built to Last. Built to Last allows you to extend all items by 50% of their duration. This means you can extend medkits to get more heals, toolboxes for more sabotages. It may seem insignificant, but it's honestly quite a powerful tool. This is like a better Streetwise in my opinion. If you pair this with strong healing perks as well as strong items, this can extend your heals exponentially to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. There's combinations where you can get like 15 heals out of a single medkit. Synergy does help this perk, but alone it's still pretty great. In number 49 we have Leader. Leader gives a 25% boost to all actions within an 8 meter range, aside generator speeds. This perk is just super okay, overwhelmingly average, but a nice little buff to have. This perk can come in clutch for quick unhooks, speedier heals, and endgame scenarios we can get the gate down quicker. This is a nice passive perk that covers a lot of ground and will activate a lot and cut down your time minimally, but in helpful ways. In number 48 we have Small Game. Small Game is a perk that activates when in range of a trap or totem within a 12 5-meter cone in front of you. This is like a hex detector, as it were. This can help you find the harder places where hexes or even traps are hidden. This perk is just so high due to the popularity of hexes, Ruin, Undying, the lot. Also in the endgame, if Noed happens to pop, you don't need a full team running this, but one person can help to systematically clear out the totems and traps and do it whilst naturally traversing the map too. In number 47 we have Stakeout. Stakeout is a perk that gains you tokens in the killer's terror radius after each 15-second duration interval. These tokens convert good skill checks into greats. Sounds average, is average. It can be great when healing though, for good bumps in speed, especially when synergized with other healing speed perks. This perk is pretty high, but that's because it offers a simplistic but beneficial ability that will persist basically the whole match no matter what you're doing, and it will work in an ideal way, accumulating during chases and allowing you to then use those tokens during periods of downtime. This perk is underrated generally. At the same time, it really is better with gen or heal speed perks. The extra bump is always nice though. In number 46 we have Open-Handed. Open-Handed is a perk that will extend all your aura reading perks by a range of 8 meters. This is pretty decent, but again, that's all it really is. It just isn't enough for it to be used instead of just an aura perk itself a lot of the time. This perk is here for the sole reason that it can be incredibly helpful to an entire team though, passively at that, broadening information extensively, and it only takes up 1 perk slot out of the 16 across a team. Get someone running Kindred, another running Bond, another running Left Behind or something, Windows of Opportunity, Object of Obsession, whatever it is, this perk genuinely helps a good amount. It just might require a little coordination and commitment to using aura perks. The information potential is worth it though. In number 45 we have Off the Record. Off the Record is a perk that's kind of a knockoff Iron Will. This perk is going to stop grunts of pain and block the killer from reading your aura for 80 seconds after being unhooked. This is just kind of a more situational, complex Iron Will mixed with Distortion. I do want to say it's pretty average still though, as it does give you the aura block and stealth right around when you need it if you're getting tunneled. So it has worth in my eyes. The factor that it's a combination of 2 very solid perks in itself makes it very solid. This perk is strange and has what feels to be odd restrictions, but in many ways you can't fault it. It provides help when needed and gives a good 80 seconds to find yourself a heal and get back in the game, or alternatively evade or flee a tunneling killer safely. In number 44 we have Windows of Opportunity. Windows is a perk that reveals windows, pallets, and breakable walls with auras within the 20-meter range. This can help you to plan your route when running the killer and also just be aware of your resources and surroundings. This perk is solid and is great early on, but I think for most players it's pretty average. With that said, as structures are mostly variable and random, this is very useful for keeping track of where you can locate resources and strong loops. No complaints really, it gets the job done with only a small cooldown. In number 43 we have Aftercare. Aftercare is kind of like a more complicated empathy, which activates after you heal a teammate or a teammate heals you. This creates an aura bond between the both of you and allows you to track each other's positions. This is pretty good for coordination and teamwork, and due to this perk having no aura range cap, it means you can keep track of teammates everywhere on the map. It also encourages altruism, its downside being that auras are lost if you get hooked. However, they can be regained, again, pretty efficiently. In number 42 we have Empathy. Empathy lets you see the auras of injured survivors in a 128-meter range. This is pretty decent. Again, there are alternatives though, and often if you're attentive enough, you should know the vague whereabouts of your team anyway. However, for all the reasons that were stated as benefits for Aftercare, this is a similar situation, except passive, and you can't lose it. It allows for good coordination, teamwork, and stopping wasted time by locating injured survivors faster. In number 41 we have Botany Knowledge. Botany Knowledge increases healing speeds by 33% and also healing item efficiency, so pretty average. A nice bonus to have though. Again, it's a passive and you always have it, so it's pretty good at the end of the day. Additional speed means cut down time, means quicker to get back to gens, and less pressure for the killer. Also lets you extend medkits for a pretty sizable amount of time. In our number 40 spot we have Repressed Alliance. Repressed Alliance is a perk which I would classify as average for the sole reason that it's one of a kind. This perk lets you work on gens, and then once you have done for 90 seconds, allows you to briefly block them for 30 seconds. This is situational, but can be insanely helpful in the late game or in a 3-gen to stop the killer from popping the gen or from Ruin regressing it. It can allow you to slow the killer down, save gen progress, and consequentially objective progress. Again, one of a kind and requires some skill sure, but can be pretty game changing. In number 39 we have Distortion. Distortion is a perk that will block all aura reading perks the killer has for 10 seconds and mask or scratch marks too. its downside being that it only has 3 uses, or 3 tokens. Often this perk can feel like it doesn't do much, but for the potential it has, I'm saying it's pretty average. This is going to help you out a ton to stay hidden, as many killers rely far too heavily on perks like Barbecue or Nurse's Calling, stuff like that, to locate where survivors are. And this helps to negate an aspect of their build, and even if just one person runs this, it can throw off the killer's information pretty well, and act as a good means to counter aura perk reliant killers and also players. In number 38 we have Dance With Me. Dance With Me is a perk that covers scratch marks for 3 seconds after fast vaulting. This can be good for quick deception and also escaping the killer whilst mid-loop. If you break line of sight, you can get away pretty easily. This perk is super underrated, and is even better when synergized with perks like Quick and Quiet, Lithe and Head On. There's a ton of options, and this perk can be both a very viable stealth, deception and looping perk. In number 37 we have Tenacity. Tenacity is an interesting but also average perk that lets you crawl on the ground faster and also recover whilst crawling. Unlike other anti-slug perks, you cannot fully recover with it. However, again, pair this up with other perks, there's a lot you can do with it. In many ways, this perk provides an option for more pressure, as you can make a ton of distance whilst downed, where something like Unbreakable still requires you to be stationary. If a killer slugs, this perk can be very beneficial and make it easy to crawl away, hide and then be picked up, completely negating the pressure that the killer has gotten from slugging you. Super underrated. In number 36 we have For the People. For the People is a perk that lets you insta-heal a teammate. At the end of the day, that's a very powerful ability, and one which is also unique. This perk works by allowing you to insta-heal a teammate by a whole health state, with the stipulation being that it transfers a health state from yourself to the person that gets healed. This perk is underrated and creates clutch plays, especially during the endgame or when games start to snowball. That ability to insta-heal is an instant pressure reliever from the killer. In number 35 we have Resilience. This perk gives you a 9% bonus to all actions when injured, some really good ones being vaulting, healing, generators and exit gate speeds. This can make chases easier when injured due to the quicker vaulting, allowing better viability on tougher and tighter loops. As well as this, the quicker speeds on objectives and heals makes for a great passive buff, even for players who aren't confident playing injured. It has soft anti-tunneling capability also due to the extra vault speed and such, just after you get unhooked. The bonuses are always nice. In number 34 we have Vigil. This perk basically gives you and teammates a faster recovery to basically all status effects when in an 8 meter range of them. The most important ones typically being the reduction of exhaustion timers, as well as healing slowdowns like Mangled or Hemorrhage. Blindness and Hindered too, which doesn't affect too much, but the fact that you can directly blanket weaken a killer's slowdown or status effect perks or add-ons makes it pretty strong, as a bit like Open-Handed, it only takes up 1 slot. The main benefit of it though is pairing it with a perk like Sprint Burst, as you basically get it back quicker. Due to the high recovery, you can use it a ton more, which is going to speed up the game pretty significantly. In number 33 we have Urban Evasion. Urban Evasion is a simple perk that allows you to move at 150% the regular crouch speed. This does what it says on the tin and allows you to evade pretty well. This is an average perk in my opinion, as if you're skilled at chases, this perk just isn't necessary really. It's still good though and does its job well. Evading is an incredibly effective strategy, and the ability to make yourself small and move faster makes this perk effective for sneaky saves, evasion, and also more specific counters like walking over Pyramid Head's trails and Hag's traps without consequence. In number 32 we have Any Means Necessary. Any Means Necessary is a perk that lets you pick up pallets after they've been dropped. It takes 4 seconds and also has a 60-second cooldown. This is good simply for the fact that it lets you take used resources and basically refresh them to be used again. It means there's a chance that strong pallets can be utilized even more than they potentially previously had been. This perk is often countered though, as many killers will just break the pallet straight away. This perk has honestly warmed to me quite a bit though, and I consider it to be a much higher tier than I would have before. There is so much you can really do with this perk, its downside simply being that it has a hard counter of killers breaking pallets, which does happen quite frequently, but again, it's one of a kind. You can also use it for cool plays like forcing killers to break pallets. In number 31 is Desperate Measures. Desperate Measures gives you a stackable 40% gain to healing speeds for every injured teammate. This may seem small, but it's giving you the most help in the most critical moments of the match, so it's pretty solid, but still just average generally. In my opinion, it's like a better version of Botany, as it also gives you a bit more unhook speed too, which is nice. Again, as it comes in at critical points also, especially during the endgame, as it allows you to have that additional small benefit of unhooking quicker, which can be great for those endgame standoffs. In number 30 we have Dark Sense. Dark Sense is a simplistic but effective perk that earns this spot for the clear and reliable information that it can provide. This perk reveals the killer's aura each time a generator is completed. This is great because it also incentivizes you to push for objective completion, and upon doing so it updates you on how you should possibly be choosing your next path or move. A solid and reliable perk for sure. In number 29 is Detective's Hunch. Detective's Hunch is a perk that reveals all auras of objects in a 64 meter range when a generator is completed. This is great to counter hexes especially, however I personally feel a lot of the time the information can just be found by locating totems or chests yourself. This perk is definitely helpful though. As long as you're doing the objective, it's effectively revealing every piece of information obtainable through auras, aside seeing the killer. So pretty good in my opinion, pretty strong and encourages objective play, and again, in a hex meta, it's good for finding those totems. In number 28 we have Quick and Quiet. Quick and Quiet is an average perk in my opinion, but still pretty great and provides for many stealthy opportunities and also synergies with other perks. This perk basically just makes all fast vaults silent. This is great though because it's another one of those perks that has a passive effect and can fit into basically any build, adding a small additional layer of deception. It's really that simple. This perk is very solid and versatile. Number 27 is Deception. Deception is a deception perk that lets you fake a locker entry and locker entry noise, as well as removing your scratch marks briefly. I feel attentive killers can look past this pretty easily. With that said, you can get away with some pretty crazy plays with this perk, especially at lower ranks, as this perk, as the name suggests, can be quite deceptive. It's probably the strongest deception perk in the game. Plus it combines a bunch of perks abilities together to create a single one that ends up being pretty strong. The potential this has to cause confusion and waste time makes it pretty amazing. It seems kind of silly and gimmicky, but it's genuinely very good to help you escape and deceive. Number 26 is Power Struggle. Power Struggle is a perk which lets you drop pallets onto the killer whilst you're being carried, as long as your wiggle progress is at 25% or over. This sounds really good, but it's very situational and doesn't get much use if you don't bring other perks to help it. It would be higher if it didn't rely so much on synergies. Expensive synergies at that. However, the factor of it being a perk that allows you to get out of the killer's grasp, and more simply the existence of this perk in the game, forces killers to avoid pallets. So almost that passive effect is kinda worthwhile. In number 25 we have Self-Care. Self-Care is a good perk in that it allows you to heal yourself on command, but it has a huge drawback, it being extremely detrimental to the team as a whole and a waste of a bunch of time. Self-Care is memed on a lot for being a killer perk due to the time it wastes or takes to fully heal yourself when using this, especially if something like Sloppy Butcher is applied. It can take like 40 something seconds. This perk isn't bad though, but it isn't good either. However, for the simple fact that it allows you to heal up by yourself and unassisted and without a medkit, is still a very strong ability. So although it's not favored by half the community, it can still be very valuable to many others. In number 24 we have Balanced Landing. Balanced Landing is an exhaustion perk, but it's still only average in my opinion. It's just far too restrictive. This perk gives you a boost of speed when you drop down from a higher surface onto a lower one. Some maps there's no places to use it aside Shack, and the old passive anti-stagger effect it used to have is gone once you become exhausted now. This perk's redemption is indoor maps. With all this said, it's still an exhaustion perk, which in many ways by default makes it a good perk simply for the fact that it can provide that speed boost. In number 23 we have Premonition. Premonition is a perk that activates when you look in the direction of the killer. It'll make a sound cue. The killer does have to be within 36 meters though, and this has a short cooldown. This perk is great though because it allows you to preemptively gain some distance, almost like an exhaustion perk would, except it's more preemptive than reactionary. This is also an effective perk for countering stealth killers and stealth perks, as it'll proc and let you know. In number 22 we have Plunderer's Instinct. Plunderers may seem like a strange one to put up this high, but in all honesty, the fact that this perk can provide you a near guarantee at getting keys, strong medkits and such, it's honestly pretty good. And this perk makes chest loot better and also lets you see chest auras. This basically makes chests not a waste of time and actually pretty worthwhile searching. It's better usually to bring items in, but with this perk looting becomes viable, and strong items can be very strong tools that can greatly impact gameplay. In number 21 we have Appraisal. Appraisal in my opinion is actually incredibly top tier. It does require some synergies in perks such as Plunderers ideally. This perk basically lets you get 2 items from one chest, and it also lets you search chests quicker the second time. This doesn't sound overly great I know, but the amount of items you can get is kind of absurd, and items are pretty strong. More so you get a crazy high chance of getting a key. So you know, one person running this can be great and provide a ton of loot for your team as well as yourself. Pair this with Plunderers and it's honestly just amazing. With this perk I once pulled 5 keys in a single game. In number 20 we have Deliverance. Deliverance allows you to unhook yourself as long as you've performed a safe hook save onto a teammate earlier in the match. I understand if there's confusion around this perk being ranked highly, but the reason for this is that this perk comes in the form of a pressure shift from the killer's benefit to the survivor's. Essentially this perk allows you to save the time of 2 people, the hooked and the unhooker, bypassing this so both can continue with generators and running the killer. Pressure is huge, so if you effectively make you being hooked irrelevant, that's pretty big. In number 19 is Alert. Alert is going to probably be seen as is an odd pick to be placed this high, but I think it provides some of the best survivor information possible at consistent rates and critical moments. Alert is one of the best information perks in my opinion. It activates when the killer breaks a pallet or destroys a generator. This happens quite a lot, and when it does activate, you'll see the killer for a short while. This can be great just for general information. It's almost like a far safer object of obsession in a way. Less information, sure, but still a great perk. Again, one of the best for easy and useful information. In number 18 we have Bond. Bond is a very solid perk, and it's just really great for, I guess, subliminal coordination within a team, as it reveals all survivor auras within a 32 meter range. This is great because you can passively take in this information and use it to help teammates, avoid sandbagging, and group on generators. You'll find a decent amount of the higher ranked perks are the perks that are simple but effective, and Bond exemplifies that in every way. This perk really is so simple, but the information and coordination it can provide is so valuable. Kindred is in number 17. Kindred is another information-based perk that focuses mainly on providing information around the hook, and primarily acts as a means to identify who the killer is targeting and if they are camping. This perk reveals all survivor auras to one another when someone is hooked, and also the killer when they are within a 16 meter range of the hook. This perk sounds really average when you first hear about it, but this may just be the best source of information you can get in-game, as it helps in so many ways. To stop tunneling and camping, to allow you to preempt the killer's arrival based on the direction they leave the hook from. It allows you to decide whether you need to go in for the unhook, or if a teammate is already on their way. This perk is great and is one that when ran makes all teams more coordinated and efficient. In number 16 we have Spine Chill. This perk lights up when the killer is within 36 meters of you and looking in your direction. It's like a reverse Premonition, but arguably it's better simply for the fact that it's passively activated and requires the killer to look at you rather than the other way around. This perk also has the added benefit of giving an additional 6% speed to all actions, meaning chases you get faster vaults, if you're mid-heal you get faster heals, so on and so on. So this is like a combo of Premonition and Resilience, which are both very solid perks and can help out a ton. Of course it still gives you the soft benefit too of getting a head start, a bit like exhaustion perks do. In number 15 we have Will Make It. This perk is going to probably shock some people being this high, but in all honesty it might be the best healing perk in the game. It's just perfect in my opinion. Easy activation, you have to unhook someone, good ability, you get double healing speed, and finally good duration. The healing speed persists for 90 seconds, meaning you can use this double speed to then go and assist other teammates after unhooking. Overall, this perk is just so simple and so strong and gets you to play in an altruistic but healthy altruistic way that aims to help your team and not farm them for points. In number 14 we have We're Gonna Live Forever. This is a very solid perk and honestly could be ranked higher here, for the simple reason that it now does more than just give BP. This perk lets you heal at twice the speed on any downed teammates. This means you can turn games around pretty quickly if slugging starts. It also allows you to take protection hits. Once 4 are taken, you get double BP at the end of the trial. So this is debatably good, but I'm putting this here with an asterisk because of the BP. That's not really an in-trial benefit. But also because rezzing teammates off the ground at twice the speed is actually incredibly impactful when it comes to strategies for killers like slugging. This is debatably a very strong perk. Although it's mainly a BP perk, it's still good regardless. In number 13 we have Inner Strength. Inner Strength is a perk that lets you break a totem, hop into a locker, and fully heal after 8 seconds. This would be rated as better if it wasn't for the restrictions of totems mainly, as this perk provides the ability for a quick and accessible heal that incentivizes the breaking of totems. Again, this is a positive with a heavy hex meta. This is a perk that benefits yourself whilst also the team more widely as you take totems out. The thing that's so solid about this perk too is the safety it provides and the ease of access and ease of use. In our number 12 spot we have Lithe. Lithe is an exhaustion perk that activates when you fast vault. From there it gives you a speed boost, but it does require you to use it early on in a chase, sometimes when in an already strong loop. This can be a little annoying and you're better off usually just having sprint burst or dead hard. It's still a great perk though. Again, any exhaustion perk is effectively just good by default, and because of the speed and distance it is capable of instantly providing you with. Lithe is no exception to this and can allow you to make easy work of chases or deterring killers from entering them to begin with. In number 11 is Soul Guard. Soul Guard is a good perk and one that will let you fully recover as many times as you like as long as the hex is active, and upon recovering will give you endurance for a short while, so it's almost like an off the ground BT. This makes it pretty strong in all honesty, again one of a kind really too. This perk can be paired up to make it even stronger, and also in a meta of hexes and with endgames filled with Noah, this perk is a lifesaver and utilizes something that benefits the killer to your advantage as a survivor, which is always nice. This perk in a way combines two of the strongest perks in the game, Unbreakable and Borrowed Time. In number 10 we have Iron Will, a simple but effective perk that allows you to fully suppress your grunts of pain or rob the killer of audible information, which is pretty valuable. It's a pretty amazing perk in my opinion, as sound is a huge tool that killers use. Take it away and chases can be a whole lot harder for them and confuse them considerably. This perk also makes it so you can play injured for most of the match without too much worry of being revealed by your grunts of pain, as you can't be heard. Not needing to heal is going to save a bunch of time. In number 9 is Head On. Head On is a very versatile exhaustion perk that allows you to burst out of lockers and stun the killer. This can allow you to get saves, buy yourself some time, and also to just annoy them. It's a very unique perk and allows you some of the most dynamic play out there. You can also pair it up with so many different stealthy and locker related perks to make it even stronger. This perk's only issue is its need for a locker, because it's not too time efficient waiting in a locker to stun the killer. However, the potential it does have, as well as the versatility, is simply too great. In our number 8 spot we have Adrenaline. Adrenaline heals you a full health state once all generators are completed. It also gives you a 5-second long speed boost. This perk is amazing because it can heal everyone up right before you need to leave when the gens are powered, when a lot of you could be in a bad spot, and likely are. It can also get people directly off the ground, instantly. It's one of those perks that feels like it's constantly coming in clutch and saving the day when you need it most, just as you hit the endgame. A full round of insta-heals is something not to be taken lightly. This perk has insane potential to turn the tables, with only the small restriction of only being active during the endgame. In our number 7 spot we have Prove Thyself. Prove Thyself in my opinion is an amazing perk. This is solely for its potential to shred generators with a competent team. This perk will boost generator speeds by 15% for each person working on a generator. Again, this just makes them go extremely fast, which is insanely valuable for pressuring the killer and completing your main objective as a survivor. If you can get the gens done quickly, you're going to be really pressuring the killer, and again, effectively doing what you're meant to be, except far more efficiently. Unbreakable is in our number 6 spot. Unbreakable is a simple yet effective perk that lets you recover from the ground and pick yourself up, and do it at increased speeds. That's all it does, but this perk is great for anti-slugging, anti-snowballing. Basically just having the pressure of being able to pick yourself up makes it pretty hard for the killer, as they have to hook you, otherwise they're wasting more of their time than yours. Pair this up with DS and this perk is unstoppable. This perk makes downing someone turn into a timer for the killer, and in many ways creates a point of pressure for them. In our number 5 spot we have Decisive Strike. Decisive Strike is an insanely annoying and also powerful anti-tunnel perk that is often used for much more than anti-tunneling. This perk lets you stab the killer after being unhooked within a 60-second duration. With this you can be aggressive, play in the killer's face, and effectively deny the killer from touching you for a full minute after you're unhooked. I hate this perk. It's silly. It's meant to be an anti-tunnel perk, but it's used for the purpose of abusing the killer's inability to pick you up during its activation time. This perk, as many have outlined, wouldn't be good if it weren't for the fact that you can use it for more than preventing tunneling. In number 4 we have Borrowed Time. Borrowed Time is a perk that allows you to unhook teammates in the killer's terror radius and apply the endurance status effect. This basically just means that if they get hit within a 16-second timer after being unhooked, then they'll be put into the deep wound status effect instead of going down. This stops tunneling and also camping. It's one of those perks that pretty much every team runs because it's just so helpful and will almost always come in clutch. This perk is the best anti-tunnel, safe unhook perk, and again, everyone should just run it always. There's literally no drawbacks to running BT, only positives. The world would be a better place if everyone ran this in solo queue. In number 3 we have Sprint Burst. Sprint Burst gives so much potential for quick map traversal and huge head starts and chases, which will really hinder the time taken for the killer to catch you. Sprint Burst of course will give you a boost for speed upon sprinting with a short exhaustion cooldown. This perk is arguably the best exhaustion perk in the game. It has a ton of uses. The instant head start this perk provides effectively makes it a default that the killer is wasting more time by getting into a chase with you. This perk also has a ton of synergies and can be made even stronger when paired with something like Vigil, for example. Honestly, just insanely good and will always be an instant lifesaver. In the number 2 spot is Dead Hard. Dead Hard is debatably the most versatile exhaustion perk, as it really ticks all the boxes. It's also the only perk in the game that allows you to fully negate any damage, even insta-downs. This perk lets you boost forward and become invulnerable briefly. This can be used to negate damage, gain distance, or bait swings to save teammates. Dead Hard is great when it works. I know that's kind of the meme with it. However you view it, this perk lets you negate damage. To me, that is ridiculous. I've never liked this perk. I think it's silly that you can completely block out damage even for a few seconds. But hey, that's what it does, and it's incredibly good for it. In our number 1 spot, and what's going to be a controversial pick, is Object of Obsession. This perk creates an aura bomb between you and the killer and allows you to see them at all times as long as you're not not in their terror radius and they are within a 64 meter range of you. The stipulation being that the killer can also see you if they look in your direction too. This perk is amazing because of the sheer amount of information that it can provide. This is a very controversial top spot, I admit, but it's here because of the potential it has when utilized by a good player, and even more so when utilized within a good team. Knowing where the killer is literally always helps with looping, hook saves, and lessening the killer's pressure in general. This perk can be insane when in the right hands. Alright, I think that's going to do it for today. I do hope you enjoyed. Consider subscribing if you like this kind of content, and feel free to drop your own favorite Survivor perks or perk tier list down in the comments. Thanks, and goodbye.